Kahala Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Rakah Hadash, and them honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and peace and taste to the icon doing his work, and truth to sincerity and the four corners of the earth. All right, we're gonna do this lesson. Okay, going into the economy. All right, and the U.S. dollar. All right, taking a dip. Recently, man. Okay, while everything that's distracting is in the news. You know, the World War III situation. All right, the big beautiful bill. All right, which is going to increase U.S. spending even more. All right, and this devil is holding back uh, this collapse, man. Okay, because he has to get all of his shit in order. All his laws that he's gonna pass, his censorship laws. His directing certain money to different tech groups and all this shit. To make sure that his Internet of Things is set up. You know, before this thing collapses, man. They have to have all that stuff in place. They have to have the money. To facilitate a lot of this shit, man. That they're going to set up. A lot of these different groups, they need a lot of funding, man. All right. For instance, Elon Musk. Elon Musk has received billions of dollars, man, and federal subsidies, man. All right. So same thing with crafting the MOTB, you know, and setting up these smart grids and all this shit. So they trying to push out all that they can. All right, and spend and print all that they can. Until the collapse. You know, and you had this facade. All right, between Trump and Powell. Trump telling Powell he needs to cut interest rates. And Powell once again said that he's not gonna cut interest rates. All right, and that's why you're seeing a lot of these layoffs, man. That's why you see a lot of these companies laying their people off, closing down the company, or like partially closing down the company. You might got a company that got multiple locations, but what they'll do is they'll squeeze those locations down, all right, until they are financially ready to grow again. All right, and that's what these people are hoping for. That's what these high up Edomites are hoping for. That really ain't in the know. You know, they hoping that interest rate come, the interest rate cut come. Then they could borrow that money again, man, and get fat again. Start hiring people again. All right, really just to fucking throw all that money back in their stocks to prop up the stock market, man. That's another reason why the stock market is down. All right, these companies can't just come in like they used to do and get this cheap money, these zero, interest rates, um, and then put them right back in the stocks to prop their company up. They can't do that shit no more because the interest rates are way too damn high. They way too fucking high. Anybody that's buying a house right now is a fucking fool. All right, and you being gypped. All right, fucking interest rate on a house shouldn't be higher than 4%, man. 4.5%. This is something that you're gonna pay 150,000, 200,000, 400,000, 500,000. Up to $1 million. Just staying in the middle class range, and you're gonna go and buy that shit with a damn 6% interest rate. On a fucking house. Man, you out your rabbit ass mind, man. That shit is really too high for even a damn vehicle. You know, 8% on a damn $20,000 car will put you at, $450 a month for that car, man. So imagine how much more, for a house, you know. And then some of you B dubs, you went and bought houses, and they ain't even put the property taxes yet on the house. But you was the only house, that was completed in that neighborhood, and now that the whole neighborhood is complete, they slapping hundreds of dollars worth of property taxes on your shit a month. People rent, and I mean their mortgage is going up $1,000 a month. Who the fuck can afford that? Who can just afford to all of a sudden your bills go up, by $1,000, man? Not a lot of people can afford that shit, man. You know? So you people are drowning. The American people, these Babylonians are fucking drowning. It ain't too many of them that's actually uh doing good and got their head above water. A lot of the retirees, you know, but even they fucked up because they pretty much on a fixed income. Okay, so when this calamity comes and this inflation, gets higher and higher, all right, well, they got to deal with higher property taxes. Okay, they're gonna take a L. They're gonna take a major L, man. Okay, say dollar index falls to fresh 3-year lows, threat to U.S. institutions' credibility, a growing worry investors. Further downside to dollar scene. Say a battered dollar is taking another beating as investors, unnerved by fresh signs of an erosion, and U.S. central bank independence waste no time in pushing the greenback back to its lowest level in over 3 years. They say President Donald Trump on Wednesday called Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell terrible in his latest attack on the Fed chief and said he has 3 or 4 people in mind as contenders for the top Fed job. So I don't know how Donald T is gonna get Powell out of the way. Okay, he's saying he got 3 or 4 people in mind as contenders for the top Fed job. I don't know. I thought Powell got to get voted out or some shit like that. You know, you can't just take him out of office, out of his seat. All right, and it's like a life term seat. They say the dollar was back at multi-year lows against a basket of other major currencies on Thursday, erasing a brief respite provided by safe haven flows related to Middle East tension earlier in the week. Down 10% so far this year, except for its worst since 2003. The dollar was expected to weaken further as renewed concern about Fed independence comes and increased expectations for rate cuts and a looming July 9th deadline for trade agreements. We are short the dollar in this environment where there's an erosion of institutions, said Casper Hentz, a senior portfolio manager at RBC. Being short a currency means holding bets, it will fall in value. Okay, so if people are short in the dollar, you know, that's not a good sign, all right, for the economy. All right, that means that they don't believe in the U.S. hegemony anymore. They don't believe in the U.S. dollar's power anymore. They don't believe in the U.S. economy anymore, man. All right. So I think the market is pricing in President Trump appointing someone who, at least at first sight, appears more sympathetic to his cause. Let me see if there's anything that go into if power can be replaced. You know, it say yes. This the AI. Yes, Jerome Powell can be replaced as the chair of the Federal Reserve, but not simply by the president's whim. While the president appoints the chair, they can only remove them for cause, meaning a legal reason like malfeasance or neglect of duty. Policy differences, even strong ones, are not sufficient grounds for removal. They say the president can only remove a governor and therefore the chair for cause. This is a legal term and will require the president to demonstrate that the individual has engaged in wrongdoing, such as an inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. You know, so how the hell is Donald T gonna replace Powell? All right, because Powell ain't did nothing criminal or how they say malfeasant. You know, ain't nothing they can do about it. All right, and Powell actually is a going according you know um, to how you were supposed to counter inflation. With those higher interest rates. He's going about it the right way. Okay, to offset inflation. All right. If Donald Trump was to get the keys to this thing and put those cut interest rates and damn near cut them down to zero, you know, hey, America, it will be booming, you know, for a very short time. America will be booming. It will the economy, you know, would skyrocket, you know. But then after that, what will come? What will come is a really high level, you know, of inflation. All right, an extremely high level. All right, that the world has never seen since Trump always liked to use hyperbole. This is the most hyperbole president, in the world, man. You know, but using his hyperbole, yeah, this would be the worst, you know, um, the economic situation, that collapse would be the worst ever. Okay, it say, how soon could Trump replace Fed chair? What to know as he reportedly considers Powell's successor. Almost a year before Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell's term is due to expire, I didn't know his shit was due to expire. So what happened when this shit expired? I gotta look into it. They say almost a year before Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell's term is due to expire, President Donald Trump appears to be closing in on Powell's replacement, underscoring the butting of heads between the White House and a largely independent U.S. central bank. See, at first, that wasn't even spoke of like that. You know, it wasn't common knowledge that the Federal Reserve, the central bank, was independent of the United States government. You know, that wasn't even spoke of. It was a given that, oh yeah, this has to be an entity of the U.S. government, man. But no, it's not. Okay. Now ask yourself, who the hell owns the central bank then? If it ain't a government entity, why is it always involved in U.S. politics? All right, and government laws. Okay, that shit was set up by the bankers, man. All right, by the elite. Okay, the elite of Esau, they set this shit up, man. All right, because hey, that's what built the central bank. Is what built the hegemony of America, man. and also, using that deal with the Saudis, to incorporate the U.S. dollar into the purchasing of petrol. You know, so that's why it's coined the petrodollar. So through the use of the petrodollar, and also through the use of debt, America was able to lift itself up above all these other nations, man. Not with no fucking substance, you know. Yeah, after World War, one and two, they had the industrial empire, you know, the what do you call it? It's a word for it, but the industrialization of America, that old made in USA bullshit, yeah, that meant something, all right, but a lot of it had to do with the ability of America, to have that power of the US dollar, man. Okay? And the dollar went far, all right, and it was able to buy a lot of goods and different purchases, all right, times 10 of these other nations' currencies, man. Okay? Some of these other nations' currencies ain't worth shit. You can have a wheelbarrow full of their currency and bring it to America, and that should only be like, 10 or 20 US dollars, you know? But all this shit is a facade, man. Okay? The US money system, it's all a facade. America and a lot of these Edomite nations got ahead, using debt and using that wicked ass banking system, man. Because here it is, the biggest Edomite nations got a whole bunch of debt. You know, you don't see them African nations with a lot of debt. You don't see those small countries in Asia with a shitload of debt. No, man. You only see these Edomite nations and the other nations that clinged on to the way of Esau, like the Ammonites. They got a fuckload of debt, man. Okay, so really, how smart is the so-called white man? How fucking high IQ is this devil when we see this financial collapse come, man? You people that think you're so rich, that think you got it all figured out. All right, you boast in your crypto. You boast in your real estate properties, and you boast in your highly favorable job. We're gonna laugh at your ass, man. All right, for trusting in this place, for filling yourself up with pride. You know, because hey, man, that mark of the beast. Even the rich and the poor are gonna take that mark of the beast, man. Okay, ain't just gonna be the poor. It ain't just gonna be the rich. All right, they're gonna take everybody's shit from them, man. All right, everybody gonna be brought down to fucking zero. you know, this is Esau. This is the spirit of Esau, man. It's Proverbs chapter 17 and verse 5. Whoso mocketh the